Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, a few different styles, but I think it is definitely fair to say that this brewery are still best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. Now, the beer that we're going to have a look at today is one of their latest releases through Systembolaget here in Sweden. It's also a style that I know these guys can do very well, and I have heard quite good things about this beer as well. So yeah, hopefully this is another good one. Needless to say, I'm very curious to see how it turns out, so hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review, we are going to head once again to Örebro, which is out to the west of Stockholm, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Apex Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Doomscroll. It comes in at 6.5% ABV, and this is another New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, this beer was released as part of the Lockout Osmoskabit assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for January of 2023. They released another IPA as well, which you'll see me review in a few videos' time, but it was available a little bit before that through Glassbanken.se, who always get the Apex beers a little bit early, of course. But yeah, always nice to review the new things that Apex are releasing, and we'll need to just see what this one has in store for us. So let's crack on and do that. But as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Apex Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer based on the geography tagging system. Just use the search bar, put your hometown, state, county, whatever in there. If I've reviewed beers from your local area, then they will no doubt pop up there. And otherwise, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries, and you'll find this one in the Swedish playlist along with many other things. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a little bit about Apex Brewing Company, or Apex as they would say in Swedish. So Apex Brewing Company were originally based in Norra, which is to the north of Örebro, out to the west of Stockholm, and the company was founded back in 2017 by Daniel Gatschitz and Niklas Lundgren. Both of these guys are musicians. Niklas played in the band in 59 Times the Pain, whereas Daniel played in Voice of a Generation. But it's these two together, Daniel and Niklas, who are responsible for the brewing operations, although there are a few others involved in the company as well, and they take care of the more businessy side of things. But this is Leif Carlson, Ola Eriksson, and Roger Hjelm. But they started off as a very small operation, just a 500 litre brew kit and 6 fermentation tanks, and they were selling their beers in their local area before they got them into Systembolaget. I believe this was around 2017 or so that they got their beers in there, and I reviewed the very first one that they released, which was the single hop, and that was just a Citra single hop New England IPA. I believe, I forget if that was 8% or if it was 6.5. It was either a double or a single, I'm really not quite sure, but yeah, that beer was very, very nice, and you know, you maybe could argue that that's one of the kind of classic IPAs in Sweden these days, but they continue to do very well. In 2018, they produced around 35,000 litres of beer with about 25 varieties, all of which were New England hazy IPAs, and over the course of 2019, they expanded even more and brewed 120,000 litres of beer with even more varieties coming out. Over the following years, they continued to expand and build up their sales and stuff like this, but in the summer of 2021, they announced that they would move to a new premises in the Baytorp district of Örebro that autumn. They have now moved there, and at that point they upgraded their 500 litre brew kit to a 3,000 litre brewing system. They added several new tanks as well. They've got a canning line, of course, and they have just been working to get their beer out there even more. In more recent times, they have been developing their lager series as well. They've got a Keller lager series of beers that they do, which are very nice. We've had the Pilsner, the Märzen, and also the Dunkel now, and I believe they're going to release a Schwarz beer quite soon, which I'm certainly looking forward to. But yeah, hopefully we see a couple of West Coast IPAs and some black IPAs and things from Apex soon. That would be a really interesting turn of events for me. But as of January 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 130 different kinds of beer, and like I said, the majority of these are New England hazy IPAs, because that's where the brewery really made their name. But yeah, that's everything I can really tell you about Apex Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a little look at this beer itself. So as you can see, this one has the kind of standard style of art that we've come to know and love from Apex Brewing. You can see there's a ram on the top of this one, plain silver top on the can there. You can see the usual Apex Brewing Company slogan there: music, beer and people. And then yeah, you can see the ABC, Apex Brewing Company triangle on the can there too. Maybe we need to move this light behind the camera up a little bit actually in future videos. But yeah, nicely presented this one. This beer is a 440 milliliter can. It was 50 Swedish kroner, so that translates to roughly about €5, £4.50 sterling, and maybe in the region of $5.50, $6 American, something like that. But yeah, really nicely presented this one. The Doom Scroll IPA. The hops in this beer, incidentally, are Kohatu from New Zealand, Idaho 7 and Simcoe. We know all of these hops. Kohatu is one that I haven't had in quite a wee while. So it is, the name Kohatu comes from the Maori word for rock. It's about 6 or 7% alpha acid. It can vary a little bit. It's known mainly for its pine resins, but it's also got quite a little bit of a tropical fruit character. I can't remember exactly what fruits it has, but we need to see when we actually taste the beer. But yeah, Idaho 7 and Simcoe we know fairly well. Idaho 7 is about 14% alpha acid. American hop gives you that lovely soft sort of mangoey, well, quite a juicy mango, but also lots of soft apricot and papayas and a bit of pineapple. Simcoe, we know it is that nice, smooth, passion fruity hop. When it goes in a New England IPA, about 12% alpha acid, and once again it's American. But yeah, that's a quick summary of the hops there. Let's just get this guy out into the glass and see how it goes. The Doom Scroll IPA, another one from Apex Brewing. So I forget how many reviews we've done from Apex actually, but it's got to be maybe about 30 or something like that. I'll need to look that up actually after we do this video, because I would be very curious to know. Reviewed a good number of beers from these guys, but yeah, that should be that. There we go. So anyway, now that we've got this guy out into the glass, you can see it's poured pretty much as you would expect of a New England hazy IPA. So you've got a nice solid finger and a bit of a frothy, I would say, perfect white head on this one. That looks really good. Quite a few smaller bubbles below the or at the base of the head there, but a few bigger ones going further up there. But it does look very, very nice. I do like how that goes together, and you can see the colour of this one is really bright and rich as well. This is a lovely, very bright yellow colour. For me, it reminds me of mango juice. I always like comparing the colours of New England IPAs to different fruit juices, because that really is just what they remind me of, to be honest with you. Not much in the way of visible carbonation with this beer. One or two bubbles toward the bottom of the glass, and just you can see one or two kind of creeping up toward the bottom of the head there. But yeah, this does look like a really, really nice New England IPA. So yeah, remember the colour of these beers depend on 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining the EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil plays a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker coloured beer. But any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts you put in will affect the colour of the beers as well. But yeah, otherwise you don't really have to care about those latter 2 variables when it comes to New England IPAs. The other thing I would point out about this one is that for a 6.5%er, this does actually have quite an impressive level of opacity to it. I do like how that I do certainly like how that goes together. So it gets a thumbs up from me in that sense. But remember, the level of haze in these beers depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree the yeast that you use. Yeah, it does look pretty nice, this one, but certainly one of the superior and gloopier New England single IPAs that I've come across. But you can see the head in this one is just fading away to be a little bit of a foamier, a thinner, more foamy layer, but it does look really quite nice. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else we really need to say about the appearance of this beer. Pretty much as you would expect from a New England hazy IPA. But yeah, let's have a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this one then. Very curious about this beer. Yeah. Aroma-wise, that's quite nice actually. It comes across as a very smooth and kind of bready New England IPA, but there's a lot of juicy and slightly oily, fruity character to this one. The green component is quite nice too. Um, yeah, aroma-wise, I have to say I do quite like the way this beer goes about its business. So it gets a big thumbs up from me. Um, yeah, that's interesting. It's not the most pungent in New England IPAs, but definitely quite a bit of stuff going on in there. But as I always say, taking in the aromas half the experience when it comes to craft beers and whiskies and sakes and stuff like this. But yeah, let's try and break this one down then and explain it a wee bit more in depth. But as I've always said in these videos, for me there are 6 elements to think about with a New England IPA. You've got the yeasty, kind of farmhousey character in there. You've also got the sort of rye leaning grainy side of things. Those tend to be a bit more prominent in American brewed New England IPAs. But then you've also got wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and to a degree the sweet component. This one for me, compared to some of the other Apex ones, this smells like it's got a bit more barley malt. I'm also getting a good little bit of wheat out of it as well in the back of the nose. And there's also a good little bit of yeasty character too. But let's just describe the aroma a wee bit more kind of in depth. So, backbone of the beer. Absolutely, you get some of that nice kind of fresh white bready bread crust just sitting in there. That forms the backbone of it. There are 1 or 2 little woody elements in there, but those are quite minimal. Actually, the more that I smell of this beer, come to think of it, the more wheat I get out of it. And this is the thing with Apex. I'd really love to know what their creative process is when it comes to making these beers, because Apex play around with their malt bases all the time. And I don't know if they think about, all right, we want to try this hop combination. How do we make the malt base suit what these hops are going to give? Or whether they do a malt base and think, you know, let's choose hops that suit it. I really don't know how they choose where to go with their beers, but it'd be interesting to know. But as I say, the more that I smell of this beer, I start to get more and more wheat out of this one. But like bread crusty backbone, little touch of wood, little tiny touch of Jacob's cream cracker. There's a good little bit of fluffy white bread in there. You've got a little bit of a wholemeal kind of brown bread character as well. But I would point out that that is also very minimal. And yeah, above that though, yeah, fluffy white bread in there. You can smell the wheat just thickening the beer out, but at the back of the nose, you have at the back of the nose, you've definitely got that more kind of wheaty. You've got a little bit more of that kind of wheaty bitiness in there. But yeah, the white wheat dense thing that densifies the beer, and then you start to get some of the oats out of this one. But I would say the more that I smell of this beer, yeah, the more it comes across as quite a wheaty leaning New England IPA. So above all of that, you do get some of the oats out of this one, and this beer actually smells as if it's in pretty fresh condition, come to think of it. So for me, as I've always said in these reviews as well, the oats in a New England IPA are usually an indicator of how fresh your beer is. The more creamy character you get from them, the fresher the beer is, the drier the oats are, the older the beer is. But this one, you get a good little bit in creaminess out of this one, but there are a few elements of dryness in there too. But I think this beer is pretty fresh compared to some of the other Apex ones that we've had through Systembolaget before, particularly when you sugar the beer up. You do start to get more and more of that smooth creaminess out of it. But there's a lovely, kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy type thing out of this one, which I do enjoy. And yeah, there's a wee bit of McVitie's digestive biscuity character in there as well. I think a wee bit of I've got a feeling there might be a bit of Golden Promise malt in this one. It just feels quite familiar actually. So yeah, aroma-wise, this is pretty good, I have to say. I like how this, I do like how this goes about its business for sure. So I think that covers the malty and yeasty side of the beer. But let's go on to the hoppy side of things. So with this beer, It does have a very bright green component. As I always say in these IPA reviews, there are three kinds of hopping. Early edition hopping within the first hour of your wort boil gives you mainly bitterness. Late edition hopping, last half hour of the wort boil, a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour aroma. Dry hopping after the wort boil is complete, that is all about the flavour and aroma. New England IPAs tend to rely on those latter two types, and that's why they have a brighter green component, whereas West Coast IPAs also use early edition hopping quite extensively, and that's why they're kind of deeper and more dank in their green components. But with this beer, you can smell it's got a very bright green component to it, and I would say that the kind of brighter green component that comes out of this beer, it's actually, you can smell the kohatu in this one, because it's got that little bit of piney, resiny character to it underneath, but you also get quite a floral, spicy character. And you know, Simcoe and Idaho 7, if you add them early enough in the boil, they are capable of giving you that. But I'd be really curious to see the actual recipe for this beer and the brew process to see what they've done. It'd be quite an interesting learning experience. But yeah, there's a little tiny bit of earthiness in there, but for me, the green component leans more toward that floral side of things. And then you have got a good little bit of grassy zestiness on the front of the nose too. So yeah, aroma-wise, the beer, I think, goes together really quite nicely. Yeah, I like it. I certainly do like how this goes together, for sure. On the fruity side of things then, yeah, there's a wee bit of pungent passion fruit to this beer for me. I wonder if that's the kohatu that's giving you that more pungent passion fruit, because Simcoe and Idaho 7 are usually quite soft hops, but I do get a little bit of a more pungent passion fruit in there. But yeah, lots of juicy mango, certainly a good bit of apricot, papaya as well. It's almost, this beer almost has a little touch of a kind of guava ripeness to the mango notes as well. So you get that stronger passion fruit, the sort of guava ripeness. To me, guava was always just a very ripe and very, like, you know, very green sort of mango in its aroma. But yeah, juicy mangoes, as I've said, papayas, apricots, bit of pineapple, and I do actually get a little bit of a very slightly limey character out of this one. Like, it's got a bit of a zesty lime to it. But definitely the fruity side of this beer leans toward that soft, kind of tropical note actually. But I think some of the pungency in this beer is coming from the kohatu. That's the thing about the New Zealand hops. They're always quite they're quite often they're low in alpha acid. Of course, Nelson Sauvin is the exception. It's 16% alpha acid, but usually they kind of make up for that with their very high myrcene oil content. So yeah, it's quite interesting to learn these little chemical components of hops. But yeah, that is everything I think we need to say about the aroma. This one, we've got the rest of the beer into the glass. I think it is about time that we have a taste of this one, but as I always say, take a bit of time to ponder over the aroma. But yeah, this beer is the Doomscroll IPA, coming in at 6.5% ABV, a New England hazy from Apex Brewing Company in Örebro, out to the west of Stockholm here in Sweden. Let's get stuck in. Slanja, skål, cheers. Yeah, I have to say, that is definitely one of the more kind of bitey and piney IPAs that I can remember having had from Apex Brewing, but it's pretty damn good actually. This is what I like about Apex. You always know you're going to get a solid New England IPA, but you never know exactly quite what you're going to get from them. You never know exactly what kind of, you know, what way the beer's going to lean. That's probably a good way to put it actually. So yeah, the more that now that I've taken a sort of second sip of this beer as well, it comes across as being a little bit more oaty and creamy. I got the impression from the aroma that this beer was going to be really yeah, I got the impression that this beer was going to be really kind of more wheaty, and it does give you a little bit of that wheaty bitiness into the aftertaste and some of the kind of piney notes as well, but it really is more kind of creamy and smooth, come to think of it. So, yeah, this is definitely an interesting beer, this one. I do like it. Where do we start with this then? On let's just go to the middle third of the palate as we always do. So backbone of the beer, you can feel that nice kind of fresh white bready bread crust quality just forming the backbone of it. Further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a little touch of a kind of woody note just sitting in the base of the beer there. But yeah, above that, there's a little bit of Jacob's cream cracker, particularly further back on that middle third of your palate, and then above that, there's a bit more of a kind of like wholemeal brown bready layer. Then you start to get the white bread above that. I do think I think this has got to be one of the freshest beers that we've had from Apex through Systembolaget. This one, I think, is in a very good position in that sense too. But yeah, in terms of the white bread above that, it's interesting. I'm getting quite a bit of wheat in that middle third of your palate too. So yeah, above the cracker layer, yeah, a little touch of a wholemeal brown bready character. Then you get the layer of white bread, and the white bread is quite dense, but at the same time it feels kind of airy as well. But then above that, you start to get, you can feel the wheaty layer just densifying out the beer. It's got a little bit of bitiness to it. So yeah, a little bit of wheaty bitiness in there, a little bit of a kind of thicker smoothness as well. Yeah. But yeah, that is really nice how that goes together. So yeah, a little bit of wheaty smoothness and bitiness and things in there. And as I say, the further you go into the aftertaste with the beer, you do get the oaty creaminess out of this one, but you also get the wheaty bitiness, and they kind of balance each other out quite well. But on top of the wheaty layer, if you go down the middle line of your tongue, there's a nice kind of oaty, creamy character to this one. So you can feel the density of the oats there and that sort of a really creamy note. And as you move out towards the edges of the palate, yeah, you do get a little touch of that slightly sweeter and slightly drier oaty character too. But if you go into the dead centre, of your palate, you'll feel there's that little concentrated kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotch type flavour out of this beer. So yeah, you can feel that in this one. And that, of course, is the alcohol in the beer, but it's 6.5% ABV. You're not going to get too much of that. What I would say, though, is that for me, this beer, when I think about some of the other Apex ones that I've had, this one actually feels a little bit more boozy than the other ones. So this kind of drinks like a number of the double IPAs I've had from this brewery before rather than a single. It feels just that little bit heavier. So maybe the wheat and the oats are a bit more are taking up a bigger component of the malt base than the barley malt is in this one. As I say, I'd be curious to see the brew sheet for this and see exactly what they've done. But yeah, definitely this one for me as a single IPA, it feels quite thick, which is interesting. But as I say, from that little circle in the middle of your palate, you can feel there's a little bit of McVitie's digestive biscuity character as you go out toward the edges of your palate too, which is interesting. But yeah, I think as I say, in terms of a single New England IPA, this is one of the heavier ones that I can remember having had from Apex Brewing. But you know, you always get, as I say, you always get a solid New England IPA from these guys. You can't complain. But that covers the middle third of the palate with this one. Back third of the palate then, so the border region between middle and back third of your palate, again, a little bit of bready build up there. It's quite a white bready character. The base of the back third of the palate is more of a kind of bread crusty note. Again, it's a little bit more grainy. Remember, more grainy bitter flavours come out further back on the palate, sweeter flavours come out further forward. But yeah, more grainy bread crust, a little bit of a dry kind of Jacob's cream cracker type note in there. And then you also have, you've got a little bit of the wholemeal brown bready layer, and you can feel that that's a little touch taller. Then you've also got that fluffy, airy white bready character coming out of this one too, and that layer is also a good little bit taller. So yeah, you've got that nice kind of airy, fluffy white bready character coming out of this one, and I really like how that goes together as well. But above that, you do get the wheaty character coming out, and the wheatiness on the back third of the palette really is quite bitey. And above that, you do have a more airy, kind of farmhousey type breading. There's a little touch of honeycomb entwined with that. I quite often get honeycomb flavours from the yeasty notes on top of the back third of the palette. But as I say, you can absolutely feel that the back third of your palette, the flavour is definitely taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of the palette, it squashes together that little bit more. And yeah, but this one for me, when it comes to the malt base, it's absolutely more of a wheaty leaning New England IPA, this one, and I like it. But yeah, let's go on to the hoppy side of the beer then and focus on the green component a little bit. Back corners of the palate, you've got a lovely little bit of earthiness there. As you move further forward, it very quickly gives you more of a kind of piney, resinous character. So yeah, you can feel with this one, the piney resin isn't there, and that's got out of these hops, it's most likely to be Kohatu. I wouldn't be surprised if they used the Kohatu as a bit of a bittering hop in this one, and I think this New England IPA has a bit more IBU than the standard sort of 30. But yeah, a little bit of earthiness in there, the big kind of piney resinous. Yeah, you've got a little bit of that kind of piney resinous, just big dank bitterness out of this one, but still at the same time you get more of a kind of floral aromatic spice out of this beer. If I was tasting it blind, I would actually guess that this beer had a little bit of Columbus in it because of how spicy it is. But around the front curve of the tongue, you've got a little bit of a lighter grassiness coming out of it. It's a wee touch zesty as well. But yeah, I do like how everything pieces together in this beer. I do have to say that. Yeah, that is pretty nice, I have to say. But round the front curve of your tongue, a little bit of a lighter grassiness in there, and also a good wee bit of zestiness as well. But the green component in this one, definitely more piney. But as I say, this beer leans to more towards the wheaty side of things, so it's a bit more bitey, and the kind of pine resin and wheaty bitiness in this beer kind of match up pretty well, I have to say. But on the kind of fruity front third of your palate with this one then, let's just focus on that to round off this review. The border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again, you get a little bit of a bready build up in there. You've got a nice, you've got a nice little bit of a smooth kind of bready base to the beer. And I do like that. So yeah, you've got a little bit of bread crust, a smooth white bready kind of thing, and then a little bit of Jacob's cream cracker. Above that, of course, in the border region, it's more of a kind of white bready build up. But then you've got that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. And as I was saying, when we smelt this beer, this is quite a tropical leaning beer, this one. There's not really a kind of big zesty citrusy quality to this one. But yeah, let's break the fruits down and just look at them more closely. So yeah, if you go to the back of that front third of your palate, there's a little bit of a more kind of pungent, passion fruity type quality in there. So yeah, big pungent passion fruit. And then as you move further forward from that, you have big pungent passion fruit, a little bit of a more how would we say, you've got more of a kind of juicy mango in front of that. Then as you move into the middle of that front third of your palate, there's a bit of an apricot-y and papaya type base, a little bit of juicy pineapple on top of that, and the kind of these apricot-y pineapple notes, they actually spread further forward into the middle third of your palate. They spread forward into the front half of that front third of your palate quite interestingly. So yeah, you can feel those there, and there's just that wee bit of pineapple on top. Perhaps just behind the front tip of the tongue, there's a wee touch of a kind of zesty, limey, lemony character. I do wonder if that comes from the Kohatu, actually. But yeah, you can feel the nice, the passion fruity notes will be coming from the Simcoe the kind of juicier and softer notes as well will be coming from the Idaho 7, the mangoes and apricots and stuff like that. So yeah, I do like how that pieces together in this one. Definitely interesting how all of that goes together in this beer, but it gets a thumbs up from me actually. Yeah, interesting stuff, really interesting stuff this one, but definitely one of the more kind of definitely one of the higher IBU and more bitey New Englands that I can remember from Apex when I think about it. Let's round off this review with a wee look at the with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So as I've said to you, for me, this beer, it feels a little bit thicker and creamy. I'd say this is top end of mid-bodied. Carbonation is quite smooth, this one, and the beer does have a kind of creamy underlying, but it's about, I would say this one has to be at least 40 IBUs. It wouldn't surprise me if it was 50. You've got a good big kind of piney element to this one. You've also got a little bit of, you've got a good little bit of piney resin in there. You've also got a good little bit of wheaty bitiness. So the malt base, a little bit grainy, bit smooth, bit of bitiness to it, and a little tiny touch of sweetness. And yeah, big, a little bit of hoppy bitterness, as we said, and then you've got a more kind of tropical, fruity note to this beer on the end too. Yeah, I really like this one. This is quite different. This strikes me as being quite different to what we've had from Apex in the past, and that's always a good thing, particularly when you get a brewery that is specialised in one style, really. Although they have been doing lagers, so maybe that's not such a fair statement. But still, I think this has turned out to be a really nice IPA, and potentially also the freshest one that I've reviewed from these guys that's been released through Systembolaget. So maybe things are improving in that sense too. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This was the Doom Scroll, a 6.5% New England Hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Apex Brewing Company in Örebro here in Sweden. So yeah, really enjoyed this one. Nice to see Kohatu at the front when it comes to hops once again. But once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Apex Brewing Company as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys at some point in the very near future. But until the next time, Slange it, Skull, cheers, check out my social media, check out Apex's social media, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Slange just now.